Okay, so we've learned a little bit about line work and three-dimensional shape and a little bit about shading. And what I want to do today is just have a little bit of fun and go away from the exercises a little bit and try to focus on some of those things that we've learned and create just a little picture here. And we're going to do a picture of a bare tree, something kind of simple to start with, but you can make it as complicated as you want to. But the focus really is to try to focus on your line work and your three-dimensional shading like we did with the 3D sphere. A tree is rounded, so it has that highlight kind of on one side and rounds away with the shadows similar to a sphere. So keep those things in mind as we go. You can go to Google and type in bare tree in the images, or you can go to unsplash.com and check out their images if you want to reference something. I'm just going to make one up out of my head. I've drawn lots of trees, I've painted lots of trees, so I'm just going to make it up as I go. I'm going to start out with an HB pencil, and my first thing I want to do is I'm going to have the tree kind of have some character to it. So I'm just going to start out with some basic lines here, and I'm going to draw in very lightly the trunk of the tree, and we'll have it kind of on a slope here, and we'll draw a little bit of the land in. But you know, this tree is going to have some character, so drawing the trunk, you don't want your lines to just be straight up and down when you draw a tree. You want it to have some shape. And you can, like I said, look at the Google images or unsplash.com and find different trees to reference. But I'm going to draw a little branch out like this, and the branches are thicker, closer into the tree, and get thinner as they get further away. What I'm going to do is I'm blocking in the frame of the tree before I start adding in a whole bunch of branches. So we'll even have another small branch coming out from the front here that's maybe coming from the other side of the tree. So as I get further up higher in the tree, the branches are going to get a little bit skinnier. And I want to have a branch coming off this side as well. Okay, so I've got a good setup here. This is just the basic frame of the tree, and I started out with that HB pencil. What I want to start doing now is I'm going to add in lots of branches and things up top, but for now I want to start adding in some detail to the trunk of the tree. So we're going to have our light source come left to right, and so that means this side of the tree, the right hand side tree, is going to be more in shadow. So I know I'll put in some kind of grassy shapes that will create a shadow. So I know the weight or the heavy looking side of the tree is going to be the right hand side. This line is going to be a little bit darker. And again, varying my pressure on the branches to ensure that I get nice variation. On this side, the line's a little bit lighter. Maybe where it crosses in front, it's got a little bit more of a heavy look to it. but most of the right hand side is going to have that heavier feel to it. And I'm going to have this branch be out in front, this one right here. So I'm going to start putting in a little bit of shading in behind that branch. Always focusing on my line work, and now I'll start adding in some skinnier branches. Okay, and we'll shade this in a little bit. I'm going to get my blending stump out eventually. I'm going to cross right over some of my branches. You want to really focus on your line work with all those little branches coming off. Go back in, shade that a little bit. Put a little weight on this branch. Little shading. But just because it comes from the other side of the tree doesn't mean the entire branch is shaded. Light has a tendency to curve around different areas. Okay, we'll continue up through. We don't want all of our branches to look the same, so you want to make some of them go different directions. Put a little weight here, shadow, maybe a little broken branch. We're not going to get super complicated with this tree. We'll do some branches, but we're not going to fill it up with millions of branches. Have the branch go right up off the top. You want to have them crisscross. Again, working on line work. Not all lines are equal. Some are heavy, some are light, some are in the middle. The more line work you have, the better. Okay, what I'm going to do now, still working with the HB, is start adding in a little bit of texture to the bark. Especially on the right hand side in the more shadowy areas. You can see my lines aren't all uniform. Shading on the opposite side of our light source, just putting in some various hatch marks and line to create some texture. Start having some little branches come off these bigger ones. In trees, the branches get thick to thin pretty quickly, and then they have a lot of really small crisscrossy branches like that. We don't, like I said, we don't have to do a million of them. We'll say this tree is a little bit older and a lot of branches have fallen off, but you can see here, you can really crisscross them quite a bit if you want to. And you can add in as many branches as you want. I would suggest, if you're new to drawing or new to drawing a tree, to keep it a little more simple to start with, and then do a few and then go from there and get them more complicated as you go. Okay, so I'm going to continue with the branches here in a minute. For now, what I want to do is I want to continue with my line work. So I'm going to just do a little bit of grass here. And for grass, I'm just still using the HB and indicating some vertical, diagonal lines. We've got some different direction, but it's kind of cool to have it on a slant like this. Maybe you want to put a little stone in. Okay, but this one's just all about kind of being creative and having a little bit of fun with our drawing and our line work. We don't want to always just do exercises. So we've got a couple stones in here. And this, maybe it's a little rocky incline up to a hill. So we've got some stones in there, some grass. Okay, and a really kind of unique looking tree. What I'm going to do now is go to my white before I go darker. Got my white here, and just like the three-dimensional sphere that we talked about, the highlight area is going to be in from the edge. Since it's rounded, the brightest area of the tree will actually be away from this left edge a little bit. So I'm going to just mark that in on these branches, just so I can kind of have a guideline of where that highlight's going to be and work from there. Maybe I'll do a little bit of a highlight on the rocks. Same type of thing, the highlight. Rocks are usually kind of rounded, so the highlight's in from the edge a little bit. So I'll add in a little bit more white value just to bring up the value, kind of separate the tree from the background a little bit. Giving myself room to go brighter. Okay, and now I'll go a little bit brighter on that highlight area of the tree. Thinking about that three-dimensional sphere shape. Okay, so I'm going to go now back. I'm going to go to a 2H, which is a little bit harder lead. And from the left-hand side, I'm going to define the edge a little bit and then bring in just a little bit of a value in from that left-hand side. Then on the right hand side, I'm going to apply a little bit more pressure with my 2H. We'll put in some shadow from the other branches. We really haven't talked about hatching and cross hatching yet, but basically hatching is just little dash marks to create shadow, and cross hatching is just crossing over them to darken it. We'll talk about that more as we go. For now, you can shade it however you're comfortable. Just try to focus mostly on your line work. We'll put in more of a shadow in on this part of the grass, since the tree might be casting a shadow right over the rock. Okay, and with this light pencil, I'm going to go through and with good line work create some more little branches coming off the bigger ones. They're very faint, but they're effective. Okay, I'm going to go in with a 9B now, so we're going really dark. I'm going to add some nice thicker line work into some areas. I don't want to go too crazy with it. We'll start adding in a few more branches. Don't want to go too crazy though. It's really easy to put in a million branches if you want to. You can do that if you want to, but I don't want the video to be 4 hours long, so try to keep it a little more simple. These branches that crisscross, I want to make sure I give them enough definition that they come out, but I don't want to overdo it and darken them where they're super dark. Okay, with my 4B, I'll go a little bit darker with my shading. Okay, I'm going to go back to my white pencil now and really lightly highlight some of these branches that are coming out in front. Then over on this right hand side, we'll put a few highlights on the branches off on this side to kind of contrast the shadow, almost make it look like light's coming through, shadow here, and then these are still catching some light. Go a little bit brighter on my rocks, a little bit brighter on that hot spot on the tree. I'm going to go back to my B pencil and I'm going to finish up the branches up here. Maybe we'll shade, get a couple more shaded branches in behind to help bring out the branches out in front. So we'll put a little more weight here, a little shading. Oh, got a broken pencil. Sharpener always fixes that. I really like this branch I just created. It's kind of fat. And then it gets really skinny. We'll fatten it up a little bit just to make it look a little more accurate. Going to erase this little line there. We'll put some shading in on this branch going in behind. Okay, I'm going to go in with my white pencil now, and in some spots put in some brighter white. Then go back to my B. Do some more shading, maybe put a little more weight on a few lines, especially out extended here where they're harder to see. Okay, I want to put a little more weight on this boulder here, little shadow in behind it. Same with this stone. I'll put another little stone here, a little more weight. These rocks. Put in a few little more indications of grass down through here. Okay, now what I'm going to do is take a little bit of my white. I'm going to change the value of my paper, which will help bring the contrast out. So we're getting some different value. And a sky usually has a gradient of dark to light. So we'll say this is the sky back here. And it's going to get lighter towards the horizon. So we'll go gradually up through and eventually kind of stop. Not really lighten up anymore. Want to get it nice and even, kind of stopped up through here. So we'll go a little bit brighter white. Down closer to the horizon. Now I'm going to go through and brighten some of my branches. Okay, now I'm going to go back to my 9B pencil. And I'm going to do some final kind of contrasty areas. Remember, the 9B is pretty much one of the darkest. So if you want to beef up your contrast, you can do so with the 9B. Your line work, you don't want your tray to just look like it's outlined. You don't want all of the lines to be really heavy. So try to pick and choose some areas to put some weight. I like to usually do it in the darkest shadow areas, but every once in a while I'll go through and just add some emphasis to certain lines, even in the light source area. So you have to kind of be creative with it and try to balance it a little bit. I'm going to darken the shadow from the tree. Darken a few branches. I'm going to switch my pencil to my 4B. So I still want some dark lines, but I want them to be a little bit thinner. So this is a great exercise to work on your line work and still create an actual image. So you're still having fun doing the exercises. It's not just an exercise, it's also being creative and creating an actual image. I'll say this branch is broken off there. Okay, I'm going to go another round here on the horizon. Just lighten that up. We'll work this up a little bit higher, and then we'll call that good. Going to brighten up just this part of the tree over here. I like the kind of the play with white on white. Okay, the last thing, if you want to take a really sharp HB pencil and define some more line, not all of the lines, but some of the branches up through the top are kind of faint. So you can take a HB and with a very thin line define some of these little branches coming off. You don't want to do all of them, you want to have a variety. Okay, and so that pretty much covers it. This is a fun little exercise to go with the sketchbook challenge, just drawing a tree, trying to be creative with it, and focusing on your line work and your highlights. Like I said, you know, the sphere, it has a shadow that gradually turns into a bright highlight like that, and the highlight is in from the edge, so it's rounded so that highlight will actually be away from the edge a little bit. So you can go ahead and create a tree. Look on Google for images, look on Unsplash, wherever you choose, but just try to be creative with it. Really focus on your line work, and when you're done and you want to show off your completed image, go to the Facebook group page and post it in the comment section, and we'll all take a look. So this is a fun exercise for the sketchbook challenge this week. In a few days, I'll have a new exercise focusing on techniques. Until then, work on your tree and have a lot of fun. See you soon.